swear to God, it's fucking frigid in here. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're talking about my favorite cute little show on television. Today, Steven Universe and Steven Universe Future. We're talking about both of them. They're two separate series, but they're basically the same series. Just one has an acronym named Future. All right, so Steven Universe, if for any of you who don't know, is about this. It's about this boy who grows up kind of in this like beach town and whatever, and he's got this magical like belly button gem, and he lives with these magical beings called like the crystal gems, and they do a bunch of stuff to defend the town and whatever, and also some themes about space colonialism. He like learns about like space colonialism, and it's like, oh no, the gem race was bad and they did some bad things, and my mom was bad. That's about as much as I like really feel like getting into it, just because like I know some people out there like want to go watch it. Subsequently, Steven Universe Future is basically post everything that happens in Steven Universe. So Steven Universe is all about like the discovery of like all these mysteries and like this like ending this intergalactic war that happens. And that is not a major spoiler. It really is like this intergalactic war that happened and ending it. Steven Universe Future subsequently takes place after that. At this point, there's no way to like really avoid spoilers for Steven Universe Future, because I'm really gonna be, this is mostly about Steven Universe Future, but Steven Universe Future is about the future, and they're living in it, and Steven's grown up now. He's not fully grown up, he's like a teenager at best, I think. He's like 16, 17, 15? No, wait. Maybe 18. I have no idea how old he is, but he's like in his teenagers. He's a teenager. I think it's 17. I'll look it up, and I promise you I'll tell you. But it's all about that, and he's ended the galactic war, and now there's like peace among the worlds, and the gems are like free to live on Earth or on the other gem colonies, and it's still cute. But today's video is talking about kind of one of my problems with Steven Universe Future, and that is that Steven is characterized almost terribly. Hot take. I have already gotten into one internet fight about this, but we'll get into 8 more, baby. Join me in the comments. I'll fucking duke it out with you. Alright? But this kind of stems from this issue that I think the show is having with what to do with Steven. Because the show's kind of whole premise is that now that the war is over and the planet's safe and stuff like that, Steven's constantly hunting for new problems that aren't there. And that leaves him to have to deal with the fact that he has not coped with anything that's happened in the past series, which is fine. The problem is, in order for them to do that, they have to almost blatantly ignore a ton of things that happen within this series as far as like lessons that Steven learns, because that's what like Steven Universe is about, is Steven like learning about lessons and learning about his magic powers and stuff like that. And so he kind of constantly is struggling with this kind of back and forth. Specifically, like the main example that struck the nerve for me was this episode where he is helping Amethyst, or he's not even helping Amethyst. Amethyst is just showing what she's helped to like contribute to what they call like little homeworld and all of the gems who have like decided to live on Earth. And Amethyst says she's gotten all the gems jobs and stuff like that. And Steven like is like, okay, cool, show me. And Amethyst takes him around in the town and like shows all of the establishments where the gems are working, and it's really cool, it's really awesome, and the gems are like really excited. And Steven notices that they're all doing jobs that are similar to the like jobs that they were created for. And subsequently Steven is like, oh, don't you think that's a little like home world of you and stuff like that? And at this point I kind of like had to stop the episode dead in its tracks as I was watching it, because I was like, that doesn't make a lick of goddamn sense. Like, sorry, my throat is so dry and so itchy, it hurts so badly. I think I'm getting sick. I hate it so much. Anyways, so The reason it doesn't make a lick of goddamn sense is because previously we already saw this kind of episode about Steven needing to like learn to listen to like Amethyst and like understanding where she's coming from and like her perspective, as well as this idea that his whole thing is about gems doing what they want. And so I couldn't understand, I couldn't wrap my head around how he could so like fundamentally mix this up, because it's a decision that the gems are making, right? It's one of those things where like I could get it if Amethyst was like, no, you'd only be good at this. It's like, no, what do you, like, it sounds like Amethyst went through the process of being like, what are you good at and what do you want to do? And a lot of the gems said jobs that were similar to the jobs they had back on Homeworld. And I think there's this moment where we could have seen like Steven double take and like kind of be like, oh, doesn't this seem a little bit Homeworldish? And then Amethyst just kind of quit back and be like, no. Like, the difference between, like, Homeworld and this is, like, they can quit at any time. And I don't know, I feel like if the episode had steered into a direction where, like, maybe we meet a gem who is working a job and they quit. And they're like, I don't like this job anymore. I want to go do something else, right? It would have been more interesting. But unfortunately, what we get is Steven being like, well, let's just switch them around, get them out of their comfort zones and stuff like that. And it goes so super bad for him. It blows up like immediately in his face and it's bad. And this is kind of like something that we see like multiple times. Not necessarily this mistake, but multiple different mistakes of like this characterization of both him attempting to like cling on to the past and things staying the same and whatnot. But also him trying to like really push forward into the future and like not really finding this like really good balance. And just each episode he seems like he mishandles every single situation, even though he should have learned how to handle that type of situation in the previous series. Another example is this episode where the fusion between Aquamarine and I guess he called her Eyeball. It was a ruby that had its gem where its eye would be. So if their fusion shows up, and Steven immediately freaks out. He's like, "Oh my god, do you guys know what fusion that is? He like freaks out and he's like, "Do you know whose fusion that is? It's Eyeball and Aquamarine. They're out to get me." And it just feels so out of character. It just comes out of left field almost, where it's like, you are the literal face of the like, what's the word? New year, new me, like movement, I guess, basically. New era, new me. And you're already out here judging this like fusion because they did some bad stuff to you in the past. Okay. And I don't know. Both me as like a fan of Steven Universe and like as a critic of media, I guess, saw this and had two moments, right? One where like my suspension of disbelief almost worked, right? It almost said, this is believable enough. I can understand like narratively why this would have to happen. But another part of me said, this immediately contradicts like everything he A, is currently and presently standing for, and B, learned about in the last series. Is there no way to do this without contradicting things that we've already established? So it's just weird. And then the next issue with his characterization is that he constantly flip-flops between this like clinging on to the past and desperate desire to like push it away. And we see this in two different episodes. We see this one episode where he is, where the gems are playing gem tag, or Steven tag, I'm sorry. And they all like transform into like young versions of like Steven, and they're like running around and they're trying to tag Steven, and he's all like, "No, I don't want to play, stop it," and whatever. And then he's all like, "Well, look, you guys are keep like trying to hang out with me like when we hung out when I was little and now I'm older, and they're like, yeah, we know, but we still want to hang out with you. And he's like, yeah, sorry, I haven't been like around to hang out. And then he's like, oh, but like we can still play. And the moral of the lesson is to like go outside and play with your friends sometimes. I don't know. And then I want to say it's the next episode. I can't remember specifically the order, but then we see this episode where I think it's called Graduation, where the like class of like little homeschool is graduating, and Steven's kind of going through it, and he's talking with his old friends and stuff like that, and it sounds like they're all like getting ready to kind of like go do their own thing. Like Sadie Killers and the Suspects has broken up. Spoilers. And Lars is about to go off into space, so he's like really excited, and like Steven freaks out. Not only internalizes his like frustrations and like his feelings about it, but he projects them onto Lars, and he's like, Lars is upset that Sadie's dating a new person. And I do say person because they are non-binary. And Lars is like, what? No, I think you are. And this whole debacle where he almost kills all of his friends by shielding them in and crushing them to death shows that he's like still trying to cling on to this past, and it's just this weird characterization. And I've had time to think about it, and originally my thought was like he just kind of subsequently gets worse every episode, making like similar mistakes or ignoring lessons he learned in the past. And my kind of only like real conclusion after like bringing this up to other people was that it's because of puberty. And I think the show is trying to the show is now slowly getting into this conversation about being like, yeah, a kid running an entire like intergalactic school might be a little stressful. To which my response is, yeah. I mean, you're like 10 episodes deep into the series, and you're only now starting to address that. And so I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I really wish they would characterize him better. Like, come up with a stable characterization. I know you need, like, him to start to, like, not cope super well, but there's a difference between showing him not coping with his new situation well and characterizing him as and flip-flopping his characterization or ignoring things that he should have learned in the past. Like, we saw him learn these things in the past. And so I just wish they could find the narrative that isn't focusing on this poor characterization, while also still kind of highlighting the fact that, no, he's not coping with this at all. There's no good way he's coping with this at all. And I think they got really close with it in... I really wish I could remember the name of the episode. But it's the episode where the human zoo shows back up. And he meets the other rose quartzes, who all literally look exactly like Rose Quartz at like different stages of her life. And they all talk like her, and they all kind of behave like her, and it's super unnerving, and he like freaks out about it. And I feel like that's a really good way of showing that, because like the episode starts with him trying to figure out where to put his mom's painting. Like, he just can't figure out where it belongs in the house anymore, because it used to just loom over the house like a crucifix almost. But now he's like, that doesn't belong there, and he like puts it in the stairwell, and he's like, it still doesn't really belong there. I kind of want her image kind of like moved. And this kind of like exchange forces him to like realize that he and also all of the other gems are not at all coping with what's happened between them and Rose Quartz / spoilers, Pink Diamond. And it's just a really interesting exchange, because it's just this really tense situation this whole time. And you're like, this is awkward. I understand why this is awkward. You have not at all had any time to unpack the actual trauma of like your mom maybe being a bad person, maybe doing some bad things. But again, it's like a rare thing. So I really wish that they could figure out what's wrong with my boy. Show me that my boy is getting older and that it's really confusing and that he just doesn't understand how to cope with it, and that trying to be more mature than he actually is hurting him more than it's helping him. And I think that would make it better. I think it would just make it better. I don't know. Those are my 2 cents on that whole debacle. I still love the show. I think it's really good. I mean, it's just a beautiful show, and the characters are just so much fun, and the world's just fun. There are some other things that I'd like to talk about. Maybe I'll talk about it in a later day after rewatching the whole show and taking notes. But this was just a little like mini Steven Universe rant about how I feel Steven is being done dirty by the writers. Anyways, that's that. Thanks. If you've never seen the show, go watch it. It's on Hulu. A lot of it's on Hulu. So, like, if you have Hulu, go watch it. It's really cute. And for, like, I don't want to say a whole season or 2, it's just, like, filler episodes that set up the world. And the animation is terrible because they haven't set in, like, an actual dictionary on how Steven is supposed to look or how any of the characters are supposed to look. So it's wild. It's beautiful. I love it. So it's just a slice of life. They're all like 15 minutes long. So it's great. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Go follow my Twitter. It'll be in the link below. Yeah, and I'll see you next time. Bye!